Welcome to Real Possibilities with AARP. Hi, I'm Elaine Warner. I am your host, and I am the program specialist for public outreach and volunteer engagement with the nonprofit AARP Connecticut statewide office, and I am on staff with AARP. Real Possibilities. You may have known us as the American Association of Retired Persons, and indeed, most of our members and our volunteers, or many of them, I should say, are retired. But our membership begins at 50 years old, and in this day and age, we are all living, not all of us maybe, but many of us are living longer. So our membership begins at 50 years old, as mentioned, and if you are a member of AARP, we want to say thank you. The mission of AARP, Real Possibilities, you heard that phrase. We feel that no one's possibilities should be lessened, should be mitigated as they age. AARP wants everyone to age with quality, dignity, and purpose. And we hope by coming into your local community today that we are able to offer you some information, some insight, help engage you and enhance your life as you age. Our topic today is going to be called Disrupt Aging. And I am proud to say that our very own CEO, Joanne Jenkins, who is our national CEO, she started the movement of Disrupt Aging, and it says right here on the cover of the book that she wrote as well, a bold new path to living your best life at every age. And we are going to get to that in just a second. We're going to define Disrupt Aging, debunk the myths, the stereotypes, hopefully, and we're going to do that with my very special guest. I'd like to introduce Ms. Tia Murphy, who is joining me today. Welcome,
Thank you.
Tia.
Thank you.
And Tia is the state president, volunteer state president of AARP Connecticut. Tia is the state president of what we call our executive council. We don't have a board of directors, but we have an executive council. So Tia, before we get into the details of Disrupt Aging, if you could tell our viewer a little bit about your role as state president and what is our executive council.
Sure. As state president, I am sort of the spokesman for the voice, the people's voice of AARP. So I represent the volunteers. I represent our state office. In our broader group, we're part of a group that is on the East Coast, not including the really large states, but all of the smaller states, plus, interestingly, Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, who we do send our great love and prayers out to everybody there. So as state president, you know, we have volunteers who are involved in advocacy and in outreach. I help recruit people for that. I help support those people. I'm an added voice because as the portfolio of being the state president, you get asked to step in and represent the whole cohort of all of our volunteers. We have about 600,000 members in the state of Connecticut,
that's correct,
right?
Yes.
So that's a lot of people. Active volunteers going out into the community and advocacy, maybe 130, 140, something like that. So if you're looking for a volunteer opportunity, please do think about us. We do a lot of extensive training. There's a lot of great programs. And frankly, the people that you work with both on staff and the volunteers are really excellent. So if you're looking for an opportunity, this is a great one.
And since you mentioned volunteerism, we're going to come back to that again before the show is over. But again, I'm the program specialist for volunteer engagement, and I am happy to speak with you personally about volunteer opportunities. Again, my name is Elaine Warner. You can call me directly. We'll be putting this number up on the screen, but it's 860-548-3169. And also, Tia, you mentioned about 600,000 members of AARP in the state of Connecticut. Connecticut is also one of the oldest states in the country, meaning we have one of the largest percentages of older people to the state's population. So that is something that's great as far as lots of older, wiser, mature Americans in the state, but also it does present challenges as well, which makes me move right into our subject of Disrupt Aging. I called it a movement. Joanne Jenkins, our CEO nationally, has started this movement. As I mentioned, she wrote a book. But first, if you could define for our viewer, Tia, what is Disrupt Aging?
You know, what we're trying to do in Disrupt Aging is to debunk the myth that aging is a time of decline. It's not. And let's talk for a minute about the word disrupt, because I think disrupt has a disreputable reputation. Okay. A lot of people think when you're disrupting something, you're introducing chaos, you're breaking things apart, it's a negative. But if you really think about it, many times we disrupt an argument. We disrupt a stereotype. We disrupt something that is negative going on to try and turn it in a positive way. And that's really what we're trying to do with aging. Not that we're trying to halt aging, because think about this. Every time you take a breath, you're aging.
I say from the moment you are born, you start aging.
You know, that's very true.
So your our first age or a newborn, right?
Your first breath.
Right.
And so here in Connecticut, we are the 7th oldest state in the union, which has its, as you're saying, its positives and its negatives. What we're trying to do with Disrupt Aging is to disrupt the myth and the stereotype that aging is a time of decline. Our founder, Dr. Ethel Andrews, said that aging is really a privilege. And if you think about it,
like
every time you take a breath, you're experiencing the privilege of aging. So what we're trying to do is stick aging stereotypes on its ears. It's not a time of decline.
Absolutely. And you know, I love what Dr. Andrews, our founder, said. And speaking of volunteerism, she started way back when, almost 60 years ago, the power of what one volunteer can do. Not only are we 600,000 members in Connecticut, but we are 38 million and growing nationwide. So the nation and actually globally, we actually are aging more. Now, Tia, you and I are both baby boomers, right?
We are
indeed. So we're aging differently than we're going to age differently than our parents and our grandparents. So how does that interface with disrupt aging?
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day as we're talking about this concept more and more into community, and you know, you're seeing a lot of our cohorts, our aging baby boomers, and I was thinking, when my grandmother was my age, she was a very old woman. I just had my 64th birthday on Sunday.
Yes.
And
well, or at least at the time of the taping of this program, you did.
Well,
yeah, yes,
whenever.
Right.
But
you might be older when our viewer sees it again. Who knows?
I'm sure I'll be older, but I won't be a whole lot older,
right.
I'm sure. But when my grandmother was my age, she was a very old woman. I'm her age, and I'm out doing things she would have loved to have done. So I have a very active life. Baby boomers are not going to accept, just like we didn't accept things back in the 60s and 70s about what was happening with the war at that time, with what was happening with racial discrimination and civil rights issues and the women's movement. We made a lot of changes in the culture. We're going to make a lot of changes now.
Well, and it was a very impactful time during when we were growing up and coming of age. Not that it isn't now; it's just different, and that's what we're talking about now. Tia, I know you have a particular passion for disrupt aging, and you have some personal experiences that got you into it. But what really drew you to this subject, you personally?
Well, a couple things. One, when I was 18, I was in a really serious car accident, and they did not expect me to live, or if I did live, to be very impaired. Impaired intellectually, I would not regain my speech, I would not be able to move properly, and I would have a lot of cognitive problems. I had a very traumatic brain injury and a lot of broken bones and internal injuries. I made a decision as I was healing from that nothing was going to stand in my way, and I was going to do everything I could to get myself restored. When the opportunity came up to start thinking about disrupting aging, and Erica Michalowski, who's in our office, was joining with the group called Borrow My Glasses, who's a gerontology program, and we were getting to see Dr. Thomas, who is the major person in the field of gerontology. They really wanted somebody to talk about embracing aging and not letting it get in their way. So I raised my hand and said, think about me, because I am the poster child for going out and doing things. I've lost my husband. I lost my mom. I stepped out of my corporate career to take care of my dad, who I did until he passed. So I have a lot of experience with caregiving, with loss, but also with a lot of joy in life. Because no matter what happens outside, it's really how you think about it and how you approach it that really colors your days. And I wake up pretty much every day, even times when things hurt because maybe I sort of ran around a little more than I should have. But even then, I'm always joyous and happy, and that's really what keeps me going.
Well, and you obviously had your baby boomer roots, like I did. So a very tumultuous,
yes.
impactful, certainly
Yep,
not
yep.
boring time as
No,
we were
nothing
growing
boring.
up. You had your personal challenges physically and otherwise. Caregiving was very impactful. Another area that we very much focus on. We'll talk about that with volunteerism before the program is over. So you go way back to your roots in getting involved with Disrupt Aging, and you mentioned my colleague in the office, our fearless Associate State Director for Community Outreach, Erica Michalowski. If you are interested, as we're talking and you're thinking about the program Disrupt Aging, if you are interested in speaking with our office about an opportunity to come out into the community on the program of Disrupt Aging, again, I want to mention Erica's name, and you can call Erica directly. Again, it's Erica Michalowski, on staff, as I am, with the AARP nonprofit Connecticut office. Her direct line, 860-548-3163. Again, that's 860-548-3163. And you can certainly speak with me directly or Erica about volunteerism with the Disrupt Aging program. And Tia, talking about coming out to the community, you're one of our lead presenters. What would our viewer anticipate if they were interested in having the Disrupt Aging program in their community? What could they expect in a presentation?
You know, we love to come out to the community. We come out with a full PowerPoint presentation with leave behind materials, and because it's AARP, there's usually some sort of a little giveaway, a little tchotchke there.
Maybe some food sometimes
maybe
too,
food,
maybe.
you know,
maybe
depends on
refreshments.
everybody's budget.
Right.
But really, be prepared to. I always say to people, what you get out of a presentation is as much what you put into it.
Sure.
We'll come out with our presentation. We'll come out with trained presenters. We're going to introduce a whole lot of concepts to you about how to look at your life and change that internal conversation, because one of the things that we have discovered through this work is that how people think about their life, how they think about aging, how they approach it, their attitudes really influence their behaviors. So for example, if I can give you one.
Absolutely.
We all remember Mickey Mantle, right?
Well, maybe not all our viewers, but you and I certainly do.
A lot
Yes,
of people,
yes, yes.
even
We go
the
back,
name,
yeah.
even the name.
Yeah, of course, a
'Cause
legend.
He is a legend. And one of the interesting things about Mickey Mantle was that every man in his family died either at the age, by their late 30s or early 40s. So Mickey Mantle said, you know what, he was a great baseball player, number 7, Yankees, pinstripe boy, you know. So he lived a very full and very robust life. He was a full-blown alcoholic, ran around, and all of a sudden at the age of 60, his liver failed. So he was being interviewed by a sports reporter who said to him, do you have any regrets? And Mickey said, well, just one, which is, I wish I had known how long I was going to live, because I would have taken better care of myself. And that's one of the key findings that we had as we looked at a lot of the research, is that people's attitudes, if you think you're not going to live very long, if you think you're going to, getting older means, oh my gosh, everything's going to go wrong, everything's going to fail, then you know what? Your mind is kind of telling you how to behave.
You can't separate
You can't
the two.
separate the two. So we're really trying to change people's internal dialogue. One of the exercises that we have is, we call it bright spots and challenges.
Okay.
And we ask people to pick 2 decades that they've already lived through and 1 decade into the future. And tell us what your bright spots are, what were the great things that happened in that decade, and what were the challenges. And almost every time we do this, someone in the audience will say, wow, you know what? That's an amazing thought. I hadn't thought about it, but my 20s were really challenging. I always think about them as being sort of golden, but there were a lot of things I needed to deal with then.
You know, on that note, is there anything, Tia, that comes to mind, a real, a story that sticks out with you, something that somebody said in one of these presentations that really got to you or made a difference for you? Something coming to mind?
Yeah, a couple of different things. One was that we had somebody, when we were telling sort of this Mickey Mantle story and talking about taking care of yourself, somebody in the audience, one of the gentlemen in the audience, said, you know, I hadn't thought about taking care of myself. I just accepted the fact that I had diabetes and I really wasn't doing anything about it. But now I realize that by doing that, I'm making myself sicker. And part of the reason why I'm not very happy and having a great life right now is because I have chosen not to do that. I'm going to make a change. I'm going to go to the doctor.
Changed
I'm
his
going to do
life in
that.
that session.
Changed
Yeah.
his life.
Yeah.
The other one was somebody who said, you know, my 30s, you know, I could remember a lot of the challenges. I couldn't remember anything good that happened in my 30s. And she said, I'm now in my 70s, and I'm thinking, this is pretty good right now. I'm happier than I've ever been because I have a lot more knowledge. I'm much more comfortable in who I am as a person. Sort of saying I'm comfortable in my own skin. And she said, you know, when I was younger, I wasn't. I was so engrossed with my children and my career and making all those things happen that I didn't take time for myself.
Well, and
I do that now.
There almost can be, and I'm sure you experience this personally, Tia, a liberation when you get older.
Absolutely.
You know, sometimes the way you feel freer when you're younger, you might feel that way when you're older. I just heard recently of somebody in their mid-70s that's taking surfing lessons out in California. You hear of marathon runners, you know, in their 70s and 80s easily. And speaking of good, you know, health, our parents, or at least mine, you know, they were active, but there weren't things like gyms and running and marathons at the time that they were.
And it
was a different culture. But on that note, and back to the presentations and what Connecticut is doing with the Disrupt Aging, how or if is Connecticut, the AARP office of Connecticut and our presentations different than what's happening nationally?
You know, that's a great question. We're creating a three-pronged story that we're going to be doing. The first is really going out into the community to get the message out to people about how to disrupt aging, how to go about doing that, how to break apart the myths and the stereotypes, getting people to really think more about how to have a really wonderful life. The next part of this is going to be how do we go to businesses, because that's one of the things that businesses are dealing with right now. There's a very mixed generational population, and how do you deal with all of that? How, you know, because as you had indicated earlier, a lot of people are working a lot longer. I mean, I've been very surprised because people are always saying to me, well, AARP, it's just for retired people. And I'm like, well, you got to understand, a lot of our volunteers and a lot of our members are still working way into their 70s and 80s.
Either out of choice or need.
Choice or necessity, but they're working longer, and they have the capability of doing that. So how does that change in the workplace? How do we accommodate that? What are the issues that we need to think about? What are different generational aspects of how we deal with that population, with all of the mix of the generations? And then the third one is really going into the classroom, getting people interested in gerontology, because as Dr. Thomas told us, if you're in the healthcare business, Dr. Thomas is this very famous gerontologist who had come and spoke to us at Quinnipiac University, world-renowned. And one of the things that he said is, any young person who is looking to have a long career and looking to have a long career in healthcare, think about gerontology. Because if you look at it, our baby boomers are just coming into this age cohort right now, and that's going to go on for a very long time. So people who are entering the field now can rest assured that they will have a very long career. And as this baby boom generation goes through the different aging processes, I will pretty much make a bet that our communities that we may call right now our 55 plus communities, they're going to look differently. Our what we used to call old people's homes, or you know, those facilities, that's going to look really different, because we're not going to have the same kind of desires and needs that the older generation has had.
I mean, we even look at senior centers today have morphed into, you know, there's aerobic classes in senior centers, Tai Chi, Zumba, computer labs, things like that. And will the language be the same? Will we still call them senior centers, or will they be called something differently, or will our generation gravitate towards senior centers? That remains to be seen. Tia, I don't want to forget to mention to our viewer, we do have a website to learn more about Disrupt Aging. And if you go to www.aarp.org/disruptaging, you will be able to find us lots of information and material. You mentioned that you talked about the three-prong approach, and also we have a partnership with other people in the Disrupt Aging process. The, what is it, Borrow My
Glasses.
If you could just talk to that as well.
Borrow My Glasses, interesting organization. The two founders are twin sisters, Donna Fettis, who is a gerontologist, and her sister, Lauren Lewis, who is a producer and a video person and just all-around tremendous creative person. And both of them work in a lot of different settings, doing education, trainings, trying to educate on both sides of the equation about how to deal with an aging population. So what they brought to the table, AARP has its approach towards it. They had their more clinical and different education approach, and the two things meld together. And one of the things that's really important for us in our presentation is it's not just a lot of facts and figures. We have some of that there. But what we were looking for is, how do you take that core information and put it into a language that is vernacular? That's how you and I talk on a regular basis, because researchers can talk over your head sometimes because that's their world, that's what they do. But what we want to do is talk to people's hearts and open their minds so that they embrace this information and take it in. So it's been wonderful to work with the Borrow My Glasses people, because they are consummate professionals in their field and do a lot of work on their own. But this partnership between AARP and them has really expanded both of our reaches into the community and into this whole concept of, how do we have our best lives possible? How do we age properly? How do we age in place? What are livability issues? What are health issues? What are the various things that we all need to think about as we proceed to continue breathing through our lives?
Well, and this Disrupt Aging, I love your passion and your commitment to this. I call it a movement when we started the program, and it truly is. I want to remind you again that our very own CEO, Joanne Jenkins, Joanne is CEO of the entire AARP organization across the country, with, again, 38 million members and counting, and has written this book, Disrupt Aging, A Bold New Path to Living Your Best Life at Every Age. Tia, you mentioned, I'm going to use the word intergenerational, because we use that in the process here. If people, as we mentioned, want to have this presentation in their communities, and again, we said you can contact Erica Michalowski, and her direct number. She is our Associate State Director for Community Outreach and has been the staff liaison and helped launch the program with our volunteers. Her number, 860-548-3163. But would this be something also where young people would want to reach out and have the presentation as well?
You know, one of the things is, we started this at Quinnipiac University, and Quinnipiac is doing some interesting things. They have a couple of students who are actually embedded and living in a Masonic care institution, along with a lot of seniors.
Assisted living, I think.
Assisted living situation. So they're benefiting, and the folks who are there are benefiting from these younger people being there. It's important to get this word out, because how we start to think about aging and how it affects our lives long term, let's put it that way, is critically important. There's some longitudinal studies that we mentioned in our presentation that showed that people who had a negative attitude towards aging when they were young, 20, 30, 40 years later, they had some real health consequences to that,
Interesting.
because that's what they expected to have happen. So they allowed things to happen and just took it as, well, that's the normal course of things.
Well, and the often heard phrase, perception is reality.
Very
so
true.
we are trying to, once again today with our program on Disrupt Aging with our volunteer state president, Tia Murphy, we're trying to debunk the stereotypes of what it means to get older, and the choices can be any. If you would like to age in what is considered the traditional way, that's a choice also. But our tagline, our branding, real possibilities, again, AARP, real possibilities. We believe that no possibility should be mitigated as you age, that you should age with quality, dignity, and purpose. And before we leave you today, I'm the program specialist for volunteer engagement. Tia's with us today as a volunteer. Our executive producer, our associate producer are standing by. They are volunteers as well. And if you are interested in volunteering with AARP Connecticut, I am happy to elaborate on all kinds of possibilities. You can call me directly, Elaine Warner, and my direct line is 860-548-3169. Again, we want to mention the website for our topic today, Disrupt Aging, which is arp.org/Disrupt Aging. And you can request a community conversation, whatever age you are. You can request that conversation on Disrupt Aging. Contact my colleague, Erica Michalowski, 860-548-3163. And just a couple minutes left, Tia, you have volunteered in so many different areas for us. And again, I'm happy to elaborate over the phone how our volunteer appointment process works. But very quickly, I know there are two areas additionally among many that you're active in. One is the Fraud Watch Network and also Road to Livability.
Livability.
So if you were to give your elevator speech on those programs, what would you say?
Well, you know, Fraud Watch Network, really what we're trying to do is educate people about the different frauds that are out there, whether it's phone scams, email scams, romance scams, because one of the best ways that you can protect yourself against something is by seeing it coming. So we give tools and help people to understand how to identify a fraud, or if you have been defrauded, how to report it. So we go out into the community, we have a great presentation, and then we talk about the different frauds that are out there and kind of debunk them. Road to Livability, that's an interesting one, because having taken care of my dad and renovated a house, to bring him home and be able to do that, I understood a lot about what that took. So when the opportunity came to put this program together to help people have the tools to be able to age in place, that's a large part of the program. So we talk about the community. What does the community need to be livable? Because we, as much as we think we may, we do not live on an island by ourselves. We are part of a community. Then what can you do in your own home, or yourself, or have a professional help you with that? And then we talk about transportation, because one of the key things here in Connecticut is we're a fairly rural. You may not feel that if you're living in a Hartford or you're in a Bridgeport or even in a New Haven, because you have a lot more transportation. But I live in Bethel, Connecticut. The Hart bus comes through once a day in the morning and once in the afternoon, and that's it. You missed the Hart bus, you missed it. So you know, so we're trying to really help people understand what kind of transportation opportunities there are for them. So that's some of what we do. We train people how to go out. You'll never go out on your own until you've really been tested and trained with a lot of people. The volunteers really work very, very hard to help you educate, to be able to make the presentation. And you know what? One of the interesting things is people come in and they volunteer and they say, I want to do whatever. I want to advocate. So they're at the state office and they realize that, well, you know what? I'm hearing about some of these other programs. I'm kind of interested in Fraud Watch, or I'm interested in livability, or what's this Disrupt Aging all about? And so it broadens and expands what people are doing. Whether you can do a lot or a little, we're really looking for people to come and help, because the more we communicate out into the community and legislate and advocate on behalf of all of our population, the better we all are.
Well, thank you for that. You warm my heart as the program specialist for volunteer engagement. And I often hear, and Tia has just expressed that, the rewarding nature of volunteering. Often we deal with serious issues, but we want it to be fun as well, whether it's the programs that Tia mentioned. We also do a lot of advocacy work. We always do it in a nonpartisan way where we meet with public officials. We do press conferences, we attend hearings, we meet in local communities, lots and lots of opportunities. So again, if you are interested in volunteerism with AARP, feel free to give me a call personally. Elaine Warner on staff in the Connecticut statewide office, 860-548-3169. Tia, thank you for being our guest today and giving us your volunteer time. We really treasure the opportunity to come into your community. Hopefully we've left you with some important information, some resources, some tools that will fit the mission of AARP to age with dignity and purpose. We will see you again with another topic. Thanks for watching. If you're a member, we appreciate that as well. See you soon.